The AP poll kept Notre Dame in at number 24, making them the first ranked 0-2 team since 1988. Wow. Yahoo Sports Daily sees Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. That is a historic stat, I should say. And it speaks to the fact that Notre Dame has two losses to two teams that are highly regarded. But the real question here becomes, should they be ranked? And even more importantly, Caroline, is there anything left for Notre Dame? They're 0-2 at this point. They played the two ranked teams that are on their schedule. What now?
Yes, there is something left for Notre Dame because there are no ranked teams on their schedule yet. And I will say, I will walk that back. USC is now ranked at 25. Notre Dame plays USC later in the season. So now they have a ranked team on their schedule, but also if Notre Dame wins out, which I think is in the realm of possibility. Purdue, Arkansas, Boise State, NC State, USC, like I said, Boston College, Navy, Pitt, Syracuse, Stanford. There's not one game in there that I can highlight and say, eek, that's not a game Notre Dame's going to be favored in. That's not a game that Notre Dame should win. So I think that Notre Dame can win out at 10-2. A 10-2 Notre Dame team is going to make the playoff. They will, 100%. The College Football Playoff Committee loves Notre Dame. Let's not forget that these are humans. These are people with inherent biases that are voting on these teams to get in the playoffs. So I think that while the margin for error is 0, like Notre Dame cannot lose another game, and every single game from here on out, understanding that it is on the weaker side of a schedule, Notre Dame needs some style points. Like they're going to have to blow some of these teams out of the water over this next stretch if they do want to still continue to be in the conversation. But a 10-2 Notre Dame team absolutely is still in the playoff conversation. But I do not believe that an 0-2 Notre Dame team has any place to be in the AP poll right now. And I think it brings up a very fair philosophical question about what the AP poll is. Well, is it a poll of a ranking of what we think these teams should be, what we think these teams are, or what these teams have done? I believe that the rankings are based off of what they've done, what we've seen. We have tangible tape and film and games and box scores and scores that we have seen, that we don't have to go off of Fantasyland. We don't have to go off of what we thought. We can go off of what is. And if we go off of what is, Notre Dame has not won a game. Notre Dame is winless. Notre Dame is 0-2 through 3 weeks of the college football season. Does that mean that Notre Dame can't find themselves back in the rankings? Of course not. Absolutely. They can. They and every other team in America can find themselves right back into the top 25. But in what world? Where a South Florida team who beat a top 25 Boise State team and a top 25 Florida team in the swamp and lost to the same team that Notre Dame lost to in Miami. In what world should a 2-1 South Florida team with 2 ranked wins be outside of the top 25 and an 0-2 Notre Dame team is in it? Make that make sense to me. If Notre Dame and South Florida were to play today on a neutral field, I think Notre Dame is probably favored by 2 touchdowns. But that's not what the AP poll is. It's not based off of Vegas. It's not based off of imaginary games. It's based off of actual games that we have seen. And we have not seen Notre Dame win a football game yet.
People would be freaking out if it was the exact same thing and it was Alabama. I mean, if Alabama were 0-2 and sitting in this situation, even though you and I both know that Alabama would be favored on a neutral field above half of these teams, people would be losing their minds. I don't think Notre Dame should be ranked at this point. I think it's absolutely, it just shows you how irrelevant these rankings are. And that's like just being honest for a second.
But I'll push
these
back
rankings
on
are
that,
useless.
Fitz. These rankings are not useless. These rankings are not irrelevant. The AP poll is the base for what the College Football Playoff Committee uses for the actual rankings that matter. So no, the rankings that come out on September 15th are not the end-all be-all, but they do influence how we view these teams and wins and losses along the line. Like Illinois is now the 9th ranked team in the country. I love Brett Bielema. No disrespect to Illinois, but they've beaten Western Illinois, Duke, and Western Michigan. In what world should Illinois be a top 10 team with that resume? If Ohio State, Penn State, whoever else in the Big Ten they have on their schedule, if they take down Illinois, That's a top 10 win. Well, maybe that's a falsely inflated win on a resume that, once we come into December, into January, once we get into college football playoff time, maybe that's portraying a false narrative about the quality of some of these wins. So, no, these rankings are not irrelevant. These rankings are the baseline for how we view the rest of college football for the next 8 weeks.
I still argue that the committee will go in with their own independent mindset. And so I find them to be irrelevant because, frankly, where we sit right now, do I believe that the College Football Playoff Committee would see the rankings the same way as this? Not a chance. So, the committee runs with their own independent mindset. Yes, this is their baseline, but they move teams around all the time. So and then the other portion of all of this is that at the end of the day, the only real importance of the rankings is it puts a number by the TV for people that don't like college football. Like, so if you're turning on Saturday, you're like, oh, it says 3 versus 6, it must be good. Like that to me is the only value here. And to your point on Notre Dame, I'll just continue to say, no, does the 2-loss Notre Dame team make the college football playoff? Not unless there's absolute chaos ahead of them. I don't believe this year that there is enough in front of them. There are only 7 spots for them to compete for. We always talk about 12, but there are 5 automatic bids. So Notre Dame's shot is to be one of the 7 at-larges. And just look at the way the college football landscape is running right now and who those at-larges could be. Like, I don't believe that they're going to get in over a team like Tennessee. I don't believe they're going to get in over a team, any of the rest of the year. How many of these SEC teams are going to get in? How many of these Big Ten teams are going to get in? If we are in a world where, let's say Ohio State represents the Big Ten, well, Penn State is certainly right now as we stand would be better off. Illinois, as you mentioned, like, should they be ranked that high? I don't know. But as we sit today, Illinois stands a better. It's not hard to get to 7 teams that are in major conferences that will have a massive advantage in their schedule by the end of the season over Notre Dame. So even though I do believe that the committee looks at it and respects Marcus Freeman as a coach, respects the talent that Notre Dame has, respects the size, the speed, all the things that they look at from the eye test of football minds, I get all of that. If you have 2 losses and they're the only 2 good teams on your schedule, and then you play a bunch of trashy teams, hey, you better beat the snot out of them. Like, you better undeniably just destroy them. And you got to be so damn good that by the end of the year, there is no question that they can say, oh, this team has evolved. Like, a 1-point win for Notre Dame at this point is every bit the same as a loss to that committee. They've got to show dominance that is absolutely otherworldly. So I do think that there's a real world where Notre Dame at 2 losses can miss the college football playoff.
It could. I wouldn't bet on it. The college football playoff wants that brand so badly. And by December, we forget about September. And it is so easy to forget about some of those early season losses. I will say this about the AP poll, though. We need to be more comfortable with going away from what the initial preseason's ranking said. The preseason rankings are only off of what we think. Can you tell me today that Georgia, Miami, and Oregon aren't better teams than LSU? I would say definitively yes, they are, but LSU is ranked above those teams. Can you tell me right now today that Oklahoma is not a better team than Texas? I would take Oklahoma by a touchdown if those 2 teams played tomorrow. Oklahoma is ranked 11th. Texas is at 8. Like, we need to be okay with going away from preseason rankings because what we've seen the field is not indicative of what we see in these rankings.
I'll go a step farther. We need to eliminate these preseason rankings. Like, the problem is we want the college football conversation that comes with them. And we like to fill content hours for months talking about college football when there are no games to talk about. I believe preseason rankings do more harm than good. Preseason rankings, preseason chatter is the reason that we anointed Arch Manning as part of the Mount Rushmore of college football quarterbacks before he'd ever done a damn thing. So I think that there's harm done from these rankings. The first ranking should not come out in any way, shape, or form. There should be no ranking, AP or any other, until the first time we hear from the College Football Playoff Committee, Halloween week. By the way, that gives them time to figure out who's actually good, who's actually bad. Not what you thought was going to be, but what actually happened this season. That gives them the time to do it. If the AP poll really wanted to be honest with the world for a second, and if college football fanatics like me and you weren't just desperate for conversation pieces, the poll wouldn't even happen until late October.
We are gluttons for context. We need that. We need so badly as sports fans to put certain teams in boxes of good and bad. And it's fun throughout the season when we get to shuffle up those boxes and the teams we thought were good aren't, and the teams we thought were bad are actually good. But when we don't have anything actually tangible to go off of in the preseason, we need something. We need to compartmentalize these teams. And that's really why I think we cling so, tightly to what those preseason rankings were, is because we want to categorize teams as good and bad when it's really not fair that we even do it.